Cole strode toward the restroom, his heart thumping a little faster than usual. Once inside the dimly lit bathroom, he locked the door and unfolded the hidden note with trembling hands. In tidy but anxious handwriting, it read, "Please, watch your wife. Don't trust her. She's not who you think." He stared at the words, his mind spinning. Was this some kind of prank? Or was Tony, the waiter, genuinely trying to warn him? The note felt heavy in his hands, as if it could change the trajectory of everything he believed about his marriage. Taking a deep breath, Cole stuffed the paper into his wallet, scattering a few drops of water onto the tile floor. He checked his reflection in the mirror, forcing his face into a casual mask. Returning to the table, he saw Tracy scrolling through her phone, her lips pressed into a tight line. As he sat, she looked up a little too quickly. "Everything okay?" she asked, her voice light, but her eyes darting past him, scanning behind his shoulder. Cole nodded and tried to muster a smile. "Yeah, just a little wet. Did you order the pie?" Tracy nodded, but her fingers fidgeted with the napkin in her lap. "It should be here any minute. I, asked for extra whipped cream, just how you like it." "Great," Cole replied, studying her more closely now. He saw it, the flicker of anxiety in her eyes, the way she chewed her bottom lip. Suddenly, the details he had been ignoring made a jagged kind of sense. He realized this night at Rosie's diner wasn't about romance at all. It was about something hidden, something Tracy was desperately trying to keep from him. The pie arrived, warm and golden, but neither of them made a move to touch it. The tension sat between them like a thick, invisible wall. Cole forced himself to break the silence. "So, tell me more about work. Everything still crazy?" "Hey, I'm just stepping out for a quick call. I'll be right back. I'm feeling a bit better, so I think we can stay a little longer. Order that pie, okay?" Cole hung up, his heart pounding in his chest. He needed to see for himself. He crept around the side of the building, his eyes scanning the parking lot. There, tucked away in a shadowy corner, was a black BMW. He approached it slowly, his breath misting in the cool night air. The car was spotless, gleaming even in the dim light. He checked the license plate, his heart sinking as he confirmed it matched the description Tony had given him. Cole's mind raced as he thought about the implications. He needed to get back inside, to face Tracy, to see if he could catch her in a lie. But first, he needed to gather his thoughts, to steel himself for what was to come. He took a deep breath, the chill of the night air helping to clear his mind. He had to stay calm, had to play this right. He couldn't let Tracy know that he suspected anything. Not yet. As he walked back into the diner, he saw Tracy sitting at the table, her phone still in her hand. She looked up as he approached, a forced smile on her face. "Feeling better?" she asked, her voice laced with concern. Cole nodded, sliding back into the booth. "Yeah, just a bit of indigestion. I think I'm good now. Let's enjoy our dessert." He forced a smile, trying to act as normal as possible. Inside, though, his mind was a whirlwind of questions and doubts. He had to find out the truth. Had to know if everything he believed about his marriage was a lie. But for now, he had to play the part. Had to keep Tracy from suspecting anything. He reached across the table, taking her hand in his. "I love you, Tracy. You know that, right?" he said. His voice steady despite the turmoil inside him. "You want to handle this yourself," Frank said quietly. Cole nodded. "I need your help, Frank. I need information. About Ryan, about any police reports involving Tracy, anything suspicious. I can't have this in the official record yet. If the department gets wind, they'll ruin any chance I have of catching them in the act. And if I'm wrong, well, I really hope I'm wrong. Frank ran a hand through his thinning hair and sighed. "You're skating on thin ice, Cole. If you try to play both sides, someone's going to get hurt. But okay, I'll pull what I can off the books." He paused, a faint smile ghosting across his face. "You always were stubborn as a mule. Let me see what I can dig up." "You're a lifesaver, Frank," Cole said, some of the tension in his shoulders easing. "I'm not leaving anything to chance. Not this time." Frank tapped a few keys at his computer, bringing up files and records faster than a civilian ever could. "Give me a couple days. Stay out of trouble, Cole, and try not to do anything reckless. If it looks like you're in real danger, you let me handle it. Understood?" Cole managed a faint, grateful smile. "You got it, Frank. I'll be careful." Frank snorted, not bothering to hide his skepticism. "You were never good at careful, Mitchell." Cole stood up, clapped his friend on the shoulder, and took a deep breath. "Thanks again, Frank. If Tracy or Ryan makes a move, I'll know. I'll get the proof I need." Walking out into the parking lot, Cole felt a strange surge of determination. For the first time since he'd found the note, the fear was matched, maybe even outpaced, by a spark of hope. He wouldn't be an easy target. Not now, not ever. Frank watched Cole stride out into the corridor, unequal parts admiration and worry twisting inside him. He knew Cole's resolve was ironclad when it came to justice. But this was personal, maybe too personal. Still, seeing his friend's unyielding back, Frank found a flicker of hope that if anyone could outsmart Ryan Hoffman and Tracy, it was Cole Mitchell. Stepping into the cool night air, Cole felt strangely alive. The jagged ache of betrayal was now a lance of purpose, guiding him step by step. Revenge wasn't his style. Justice was. But when justice entwined with a lifetime of scars, it took on an edge that even old friends could hardly recognize. He slipped into his car and spread the printouts out on the dashboard, tracing Ryan's movements, studying the patterns in financial records and property deals. The warehouse intrigued him most. Why would Ryan need such a place? And why pay cash? Cole made a mental note to check it out soon, maybe tonight if Tracy was still busy spinning her web of lies. He flipped his phone open and called a number he hadn't dialed in years, a local contact who specialized in discreet surveillance equipment. "I need eyes on 3 locations," Cole said briskly. "Maple Heights, Crystal Lake, and a warehouse downtown. Can you have it done by tomorrow?" There was a pause on the other end, then a low laugh. "You work in a big case, Mitchell?" "You could say that," Cole replied. "It's the most important one of my life." He ended the call and glanced down at his watch. It was nearly midnight. In the darkness, Cole made a silent vow. He wouldn't let his father's fate become his own. And before this was over, Tracy and Ryan would know exactly what it felt like to bet everything and lose. Frank's brow furrowed in alarm. "Are you saying—" Cole nodded gravely. "I pulled the missing persons report. Never solved. No body. But I found traffic cam footage from a mile from Ryan's other property, the one up at Crystal Lake. Angela's car was seen passing by at 2:13 a.m. She hasn't been seen since. And check this out. Ryan made 3 cash withdrawals in the days before she disappeared, all just under the reporting threshold." Frank's hands tightened around his coffee cup. "That's not enough for an arrest, Cole? Not even close." "I know," Cole replied, keeping his voice low and steady. "But it shows a pattern. The same pattern I've started to see with Tracy, late-night meetings, burner phones, hiding assets. They're not just planning, Frank, they're rehearsing." Frank shook his head, the reality weighing heavy. "You realize how deep this goes, right? If Ryan's done this before, and the cops never caught on. That's why I can't let my guard down." Cole's jaw was set. I need to push them to act, but on my terms. I want the whole web, Frank. Everyone they've paid off. Every false lead they've planted, all of it. If I can expose the entire scheme, maybe I'll have something even they can't hide from." Frank stared at him for a long moment before nodding. "All right, Cole, I'm with you. Just watch your back, okay? These people are dangerous." Cole gave a grim smile. "Don't worry, for once I'm 2 steps ahead." Cole had even gone so far as to buy a new fishing rod, complete with a high-end reel and custom lures. He made sure to mention it to Tracy, casually dropping hints about how much he was looking forward to trying it out. He knew that Ryan would see this as an opportunity, a chance to make his death look like a tragic accident. But Cole was ready. He had installed hidden cameras and microphones in the cabin, ensuring that every word, every movement would be recorded. He had also rigged the fishing rod with a small GPS tracker, so he could monitor his movements in real time. The final phase was the most dangerous. Cole had to make them believe that he was completely oblivious to their plans, that he trusted them implicitly. He had to make them think that he was the perfect mark, the ideal victim. He had to make them underestimate him. So, he had started acting more loving, more attentive, more like the husband Tracy had always wanted. He cooked her favorite meals, bought her flowers, took her on surprise dates. He even started leaving love notes around the house, little reminders of how much he cared for her. But it was all an act, a carefully crafted facade designed to lull them into a false sense of security. Inside, Cole was a coiled spring, ready to strike at the first sign of danger. He had spent years honing his skills, learning how to read people, how to anticipate their moves, how to stay one step ahead. And now he was putting all of that training to use, turning the tables on the people who thought they could outsmart him. As he sat in his office, surrounded by the evidence of their betrayal, Cole felt a cold, hard determination settle over him. He would not be a victim, he would not be a pawn in their twisted game, he would be the hunter, and they would be the prey. And when the time came, he would make sure they paid for every lie, every deception, every moment of pain they had caused him. The crisp air drifted through the open windows as the sun dipped low on the horizon, bathing the forest road in golden light. Tracy smiled beside Cole, her hand resting lightly on his arm, her laughter ringing just a touch too high, too bright. She chattered about cozy cabins and lakeside walks, her words painting a picture-perfect weekend getaway. Cole responded in kind, effortlessly slipping into the role of the loving husband, masking the steel beneath his gentle smiles. Inside, he counted every mile, his senses razor-sharp as they wound through the towering pines. At every turn he mentally rehearsed his plan, each step carefully mapped, every contingency accounted for. The trunk held a fishing tackle box fitted with hidden cameras and a backup recorder sewn into the lining of his jacket. The dash cam was already syncing with his cloud storage, pulling double duty as a witness and an alibi. As they reached the secluded entrance to the resort, Martha Hendress was waiting near the main lodge. She waved, keeping her expression warm and casual. Tracy greeted her with friendly small talk, never suspecting that Martha was one of Cole's key allies in this quiet war. Cole caught Martha's eye, giving a subtle nod of gratitude before Tracy led him by the hand along the winding path to their private cabin. It was picture perfect. Rustic wood, a wraparound porch with sunset views, and the tranquil hush of the lake whispering beyond the trees. Tracy unpacked their bags with smiling efficiency, but Cole watched her for signs of nerves. Her too careful touch, the faint tension in her shoulders. Dinner was a candlelit affair on the porch. Tracy toasted to new beginnings, her smile dazzling but brittle. Cole raised his glass, playing along, watching her closely. The evening wore on with laughter and stories, the moon casting silver ripples across the water. Soon, Tracy excused herself to the bedroom, claiming an early headache and the need for rest before tomorrow's planned fishing trip. Cole sat in the darkness, the gentle hush of the lake broken only by the faint buzz of insects. He took a long breath, feeling the final weight of his resolve settle in. Tonight, everything was in place. The next 24 hours would decide who walked away from Mirror Lake and who would never leave at all. The lake shimmered like polished silver beneath the gathering dusk. Cole slowed their pace, letting the silence stretch between the soft crunch of gravel underfoot and the lapping of gentle waves at the shore. Tracy forced a laugh here and there, but Cole noticed the nervous glances she cast at each darkening thicket, the furtive clench of her hand around her phone, even as the signal bars disappeared one by one. They reached the overlook, a natural stone platform jutting out above the water. The view was breathtaking, but Tracy barely looked at it. Her eyes scanned the woods behind them, searching the shadows for someone who should have already arrived. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Cole said quietly. "Kind of makes you wonder what secrets a place like this could hide." Tracy's smile trembled. "It's peaceful. Almost too quiet." She risked another glance at her phone, then tucked it away, giving up. Cole wrapped his arm around her, drawing her close. "You know, I always imagined we'd have a place like this someday. Somewhere to get away from the rest of the world." His tone was sincere, the words cloaked in just enough warmth to pass as genuine. "Yeah, me too," Tracy murmured, trying hard to keep up the charade. They watched the sun dip below the tree line, Tracy growing more tense with each passing minute, every shadow stretching longer along the water. Cole allowed himself a slow, invisible smile. Everything was happening exactly as he planned. When they finally headed back to the cabin, dusk had deepened tonight. Tracy excused herself almost immediately, claiming exhaustion and retreating to the bedroom. Cole listened as she moved about, pacing, whispering low calls that slid into silence with each failed attempt at reception. Cole sat by the window, watching the shadowy fringe where the forest met the lake, the world suspended in suspense. He knew Ryan was out there, waiting, frustrated, and more dangerous than ever, now that his carefully orchestrated plan was spiraling out of control. Cole's voice was steady, his eyes never leaving Ryan's. "But you see, Ryan, I have a problem with that. I have a problem with people who think they can use me, who think they can manipulate me, who think they can take what's mine and get away with it. And I have an even bigger problem with people who think they can kill me." Ryan's hand twitched, but Cole's gun remained steady, aimed squarely at his chest. "Don't even think about it, Ryan. You're not the only one who knows how to plan ahead. I've got cameras set up all over this place. Every word, every movement, it's all being recorded. And if anything happens to me, that footage goes straight to the police, along with every text message, every phone call, every piece of evidence I've collected over the past few weeks." Tracy's eyes widened in horror as the reality of their situation sank in. "Cole, please," she begged, her voice shaking. "We can work this out. We can—" "Work this out?" Cole interrupted, his voice cold. "You want to work this out? You want to talk about how we can fix this? You and your lover here were planning to kill me, Tracy. You were planning to stage an accident to make it look like I slipped and fell. You were going to collect the insurance money and live happily ever after while I rotted in a grave." Tracy's face crumpled, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I'm sorry, Cole, I'm so sorry. I never meant for any of this to happen. It was Ryan's idea. He convinced me that—" "Shut up, Tracy," Ryan snarled, his voice laced with venom. "You're not helping." Cole's gaze flicked between them, his expression unreadable. You know, I've spent the past few weeks preparing for this moment. I've set up cameras. I've planted evidence. I've made sure that every move you've made has been documented. And do you know why? Ryan's lips curled into a sneer. Because you're a paranoid freak, Mitchell. Because you can't trust anyone, not even your own wife. Cole shook his head slowly. No, Ryan. Because I know people like you. I know people who think they're smarter than everyone else, who think they can get away with anything. And I know that the only way to stop people like you is to make sure that you can't get away with it. That you can't hide behind your money, your connections, your lies, that you can't escape the consequences of your actions. He took a step closer, his voice dropping to a low growl. And that's what I'm going to do, Ryan. I'm going to make sure that you pay for what you've done. I'm going to make sure that you can't hurt anyone else. And I'm going to make sure that you can't hurt me. Ever again. But his eyes held a world of sadness and betrayal. Once, maybe. But love doesn't plan murder, Tracy. It doesn't plot and scheme and manipulate. It doesn't dissolve bodies in acid and collect insurance money. That's not love. That's obsession. And it's twisted beyond recognition. Frank Morrison approached Cole, clapping him on the shoulder. You did good, Cole. Real good. We've got enough to put them away for a long time. Cole nodded, but his gaze remained fixed on the retreating figures of his former wife and her lover. It's not enough, Frank. It'll never be enough. But it's a start. Martha Hendress stepped forward, her eyes filled with a mix of admiration and relief. You played them, Cole. You turned their own game against them. I never would have believed it if I hadn't seen it with my own eyes. Cole offered her a faint smile. It was the only way. They thought they were smarter, that they could outmaneuver me. But they underestimated me. They underestimated the lengths I'd go to protect myself. To protect what's mine. As the night deepened, Cole stood alone by the lake, the water reflecting the cold, unyielding stars above. He had won, but the victory tasted bitter. He had exposed their lies, their deceit, their twisted plans. But in doing so, he had also exposed the darkest parts of himself, the parts that could plan and execute with cold, unyielding precision, the parts that could look into the eyes of the people he once loved and see only enemies. But as he stood there, the cool night air whispering through the trees, Cole knew one thing for certain. He would never be a victim again. He would never be the one caught off guard, the one taken by surprise. He would be the hunter, the one who saw the shadows before they moved, the one who struck first and struck hard. And in that knowledge he found a strange, cold comfort. The lake lapped gently against the shore, the world around him quiet and still. But inside, Cole Mitchell burned with a fire that would never be extinguished, a fire that would keep him vigilant, keep him strong, keep him alive. And as he turned away from the water, he stepped into the darkness, ready to face whatever came next. Tracy covered her face with trembling hands, her body shaking with silent sobs. Regret and terror flooded her features, all her justifications and excuses crumbling under the weight of the truth. I didn't know, she whispered, voice broken. Cole, I thought... He said she'd moved away, that she was happy. Cole's gaze was unyielding. You saw what you wanted to see. That's how he works. Gives people what they want, then takes everything from them when they're no longer useful. You wanted an escape. Ryan was your vehicle, but all along he was just a predator with a new target. Tracy looked up, eyes rimmed red, her voice hoarse. So what now? What do you want from me? Nothing, Cole replied, standing tall. I want nothing from you, Tracy. You made your choices. Now you live with them. He turned to leave, pausing with his hand on the cold metal door. Maybe, someday, you'll decide to help the investigation. Maybe you'll remember something about Ryan that helps bring real justice for Angela Summers and the others. But whatever you do, you'll do it for yourself now, not for me. As Cole walked away, Tracy's desperate pleas echoed behind him, but he didn't look back. Each step felt lighter, a burden lifting from his shoulders. He'd lost his marriage, his trust, and much of the warmth he once held for the world, but he'd regained something else, a hard-won freedom, and the knowledge that, in the end, he had refused to let betrayal define his future. Outside the jail, the morning sun burned away the last traces of dawn mist, shining on a man forever changed, but, finally, truly free. But now, with the adrenaline gone and justice set in motion, the silence felt heavier than ever. Cole poured himself a glass of water and stood by the window, looking out at the quiet street. He found himself reflecting on everything that had transpired, the routines, the secrets, the betrayals that had passed unseen in the very room where he now stood, the knowledge that he'd survived, that he had defeated the people who meant him harm, did little to fill the emptiness their actions had carved into his heart. For a moment, he let himself mourn, not just the marriage, but the man he'd been before suspicion became his only shield. His phone buzzed with a simple message from Frank. "Ryan won't get away with it. Rest easy tonight." Cole allowed himself a rare, small smile. There was a kind of peace in knowing the hunt was over, at least for now, and that those who hunted him were caged by their own schemes. As he turned out the light and set the empty glass aside, Cole made a quiet vow to himself. He would rebuild, step by step, with a vigilance learned through pain, but also with the hope that someday trust might be possible again, even for a man who knew, better than most, that some truths were almost too costly to survive. He climbed the stairs, one deliberate step at a time, leaving the shadows of betrayal behind for the clean, uncertain promise of morning. It was empathy, a deep ache for a young woman who had lost more than he ever realized, and for a friend who'd cried for help and been met with silence. "You did everything you could, Jessica," Cole said softly, his own voice raw with understanding. "None of this was your fault. Ryan Hoffman manipulated everyone around him. That doesn't reflect on you or on Angela." Jessica's tears fell quietly, and she nodded, relief and grief battling across her features. "At least I know the truth now. Thank you for that, and for stopping him before he hurt anyone else." Cole leaned forward. "I'm truly sorry for your loss, and for everything you've had to go through, carrying questions that didn't have answers. I can't bring Angela back, but I promise I'll make sure what I found about your father reaches every family he's hurt. The prosecutors will have everything. He will pay for what he's done." Jessica managed a trembling smile. Angela was strong and kind. She didn't deserve this. No one did. Maybe now she can finally rest. They shook hands, and for just a moment Cole felt like the man he used to be, not just the hunter or the investigator, but someone who could bring a little peace out of chaos. After Jessica left, Cole sat in silence, the room heavy with memory. The cost of truth was real, and though justice had been served, its weight was almost as heavy as the lies it had replaced. But now, at least, he could see a way forward, a future grounded in honesty, and the hope that out of so much darkness, a little light had finally broken through. And so, as another day faded into dusk, Cole reminded himself that survival wasn't enough. Healing, after all, was the bravest kind of victory. The letter's elegant script trembled with pain and hope. Robert Shunn laid bare the agony of never knowing, the silent torture of a lost daughter who seemed to vanish into thin air, a bright life snuffed out, and beneath every day's routine, the ache of not having answers. He had watched the news, read the headlines about Ryan Hoffman's arrest, and realized for the first time that his own private nightmare might fit within the tangled web Cole Mitchell had exposed. He pleaded, "If you know anything, if there's any way to reopen Michelle's case to find out what happened to her, please help us. Even if it's only the truth, we need it. My wife and I can't move on without knowing." Cole ran his fingers over the letter, feeling the full weight of what he'd set in motion. For every act of justice served, another wound was uncovered, another family reminded of all they had lost. He sat back, staring at the ceiling, questions echoing through his mind. Had he done enough? Had he gone far enough, or merely scratched the surface of a darkness that would keep eating away, long after the courtroom lights dimmed and the reporters went home? In the end, Cole penned a reply. "Dear Mr. Shun, thank you for reaching out. I am deeply sorry for your pain. You deserve answers, and so did Michelle. I will do everything in my power to make sure your daughter's case is not forgotten. Please know you are not alone." He signed his name and promised himself he would follow every clue, turn over every stone. If there was truth to be found for the Chuns, he would find it. It wouldn't bring back what was lost, but perhaps it would stitch together a little more justice in a world that never promised it to anyone. With that, Cole made a silent promise. The hunter's work was never truly done, not while there was even one more shadow left unexplored. He listened to the rhythm of the rain, each drop tapping out a reminder that justice was never truly clean, never without collateral damage. Cole knew the courtroom drama unfolding might mean Ryan and Tracy would face lighter sentences than they deserved, that hard-fought evidence could vanish with the wave of a judge's hand. Sleep eluded him, the ghosts of Angela Summers and Michelle Chun haunting the darkness. He'd become the instrument of justice some needed, but the unintended pain he'd left behind gnawed at him more deeply than he'd ever anticipated. He'd hunted monsters, but in doing so hadn't always checked if he was trailing shadows or casting his own. The next morning, files and fresh legal motions in hand, Cole drove to the courthouse through gray, sodden streets. He presented his evidence to the DA, refusing to let plea deals pass quietly. "If there's any chance to salvage this case, I want every resource on it," he insisted. "If you drop the charges, you let them do this to someone else, and I won't allow that." The DA regarded him with weary respect. "We're fighting for you, Cole, but you need to prepare yourself. Sometimes, even when we know the truth, the law isn't enough. Sometimes justice is just out of reach." Those blunt words echoed in Cole's mind as he left the office and walked beneath the courthouse's stone arches. No comfort waited for him there, only the cold determination to keep searching, to keep pushing, to keep fighting for the truth others wouldn't see or couldn't prove. That night, he pulled Robert Chun's letter from his briefcase and began drawing up a private plan of investigation. No matter what technicalities tangled his fight with Ryan and Tracy, he would exhaust every lead for Michelle, even if that meant stepping into darkness again. He would show no mercy, neither to monsters nor to himself, because sometimes the hardest part of seeking truth wasn't facing evil. It was surviving what the search revealed within his own soul. She removed her reading glasses and fixed Cole with a measured gaze. "Mr. Mitchell, this is highly unusual. The law gives the prosecution discretion over plea negotiations, but victims are entitled to be heard." She nodded to the prosecutor. "Ada Williams, has the district attorney's office made a final decision?" Ada Williams stepped forward, voice steady. "Your Honor, After reviewing all available evidence and in consultation with the investigating officers and the victim, the people are not prepared to accept a plea to voluntary manslaughter. We will proceed to trial on the charge of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. Tracy's lawyer protested, frustration in his tone. Your Honor, this is a miscarriage of justice. The suppressed evidence means the prosecution can't make this case beyond a reasonable doubt. Judge Foster silenced him with a glance. That is what trials are for, Mr. Kellerman. The jury will decide based on the evidence the court allows. Ms. Mitchell, you have the right to change your plea at any time before a verdict is reached. Tracy's face was pale, her hands shaking as she glanced nervously at her parents in the front row. She gathered herself, nodding to the judge. Yes, Your Honor, I understand. Cole felt the knot in his stomach ease. Not satisfaction, but grim determination. He didn't know if the jury would see through Tracy's performance, if justice would be truly served. All he could do was trust that the truth he had fought so hard to uncover would shine through, even if it had to do so under the harshest of circumstances. Judge Foster set the trial date for the following month. As the session adjourned, Tracy was led from the courtroom, her eyes never meeting Cole's. In the tense silence that followed, he felt not triumph, but a weary sense that the long battle still wasn't over. Out in the lobby, Jessica Hoffman hesitated, then approached him quietly. Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. No matter what happens, you made sure my father and Tracy can't hurt anyone else. Cole managed a wan smile. The truth always has a cost, Jessica. We can only do our best to make sure it's paid by those who earned it. As the courthouse emptied around him, Cole Mitchell leaned into that resolve, knowing the fight wasn't finished, but certain that no matter the cost, he would see it through to the end. He met Margaret's eyes, his own steady and unwavering. She wasn't desperate, Margaret. She was calculating. She wasn't trying to escape. She was trying to take everything and erase me in the process. His voice was controlled, but the pain behind it was sharp. I'm sorry you're hurting, but what she tried to do isn't a mistake. It's a crime, and it deserves to be punished. Donald looked away, jaw clenched, unable to speak. Margaret's eyes filled with tears. She's still our daughter, she whispered again, her words barely audible. Cole nodded. And I was her husband. I was supposed to trust her with my life. Instead, she plotted to end it. His tone softened just a little. You have every right to love her. I hope, for your sake, you can come to terms with what she's done. But if you're here for forgiveness or understanding, I don't have any to give. He stepped past them, feeling their anguish but unable to carry it for them. Out in the cool afternoon air, he drew a shaky breath, the courthouse and all its arguments echoing behind him. He realized then, as Tracy's parents melted away into the crowd, as the future of the case remained uncertain, that there was no victory left in any of this. Only the endless task of making sure evil couldn't hide behind excuses, and the unyielding resolve to see justice carried out, whether the system handled it or not. Cole straightened his shoulders and walked away, determined to face whatever came next, no matter the cost. Jessica nodded, her voice barely audible. I worked here for a year before I figured out what my father was really doing. I know every shift, every blind spot, every camera angle. This place is a maze, but I know the way. They slipped inside, moving silently through the labyrinth of corridors and storage rooms. The air was thick with the smell of chemicals and the faint hum of machinery. Every shadow seemed to hold a threat, every noise a warning. But Cole and Jessica moved with purpose, their steps sure and steady. Jessica led him to a small room tucked away in a corner of the warehouse. Inside, a single desk held a laptop and a stack of files. She sat down and began typing, her fingers dancing over the keyboard with practiced ease. "This is where he kept all his records," she said. "Financial statements, property deeds, correspondence with clients and associates. Everything he needed to keep his empire running smoothly." Cole watched as she pulled up file after file, each one a piece of the puzzle that had become his life. He saw names he recognized, dates that matched his own timeline of events, and details that made his blood run cold. "How did you get access to all this?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Jessica didn't look up from the screen. "I hacked his system a long time ago. I knew he was hiding something, but I never imagined it was this bad. I've been collecting evidence for years, waiting for the right moment to expose him." She turned to face Cole, her eyes shining with a mix of triumph and sadness. "Now, with your help, we can finally bring him down. Not just for what he did to you, but for everything he's done to everyone else." Cole felt a surge of determination. He had come here seeking justice, but he found something more. A partner in vengeance, someone who understood the depths of his anger and shared his desire for retribution. Together, they would make sure Ryan Hoffman paid for his crimes, no matter what it took. As they worked, the night wore on, and the warehouse seemed to grow darker, more menacing. But Cole and Jessica didn't falter. They knew the truth was out there, hidden in the shadows, waiting to be found, and they were determined to find it, no matter the cost. Their eyes widened in shock and fear as they recognized the warehouse, the room where they'd planned to end Cole's life. The driver, Miguel, led them inside, his expression grim. "I'm sorry, man," he muttered to Cole, "but this is the only way." Cole nodded, his voice cold. "I understand, and I appreciate your help." As Miguel left, Cole and Jessica stepped out of the shadows, their faces illuminated by the harsh glow of the overhead lights. Tracy's eyes filled with tears as she saw her husband, the man she'd betrayed, standing before her. "Cole, please," she begged. "Don't do this. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." Cole's expression didn't change. "Sorry isn't enough, Tracy. Not for what you did, not for what you planned to do." Ryan, ever the opportunist, tried a different tactic. "Come on, Mitchell. You're better than this. You're a man of the law. You can't just—" Jessica cut him off, her voice like ice. "I'm a woman of the law, and I can do whatever I want, especially when it comes to my father." Cole gestured to the soundproof room, the one Ryan had prepared for Cole's murder. "Inside, both of you." Tracy and Ryan exchanged a desperate glance, but they knew they had no choice. They shuffled into the room, their chains clanking against the concrete floor. Cole and Jessica followed, closing the door behind them. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of chemicals. The plastic sheeting crinkled underfoot, a chilling reminder of the fate that had once been intended for Cole. He looked at Tracy and Ryan, seeing not the people they'd once been, but the monsters they'd become. "You know why we're here," Cole said, his voice steady and calm. "You know what you did, and you know what you deserve." Tracy began to cry, her shoulders shaking with sobs. "Please, Cole, I love you. I never meant for any of this to happen." Cole's heart ached, but his resolve didn't waver. "Love isn't enough, Tracy. Not after what you did, not after what you planned to do." He turned to Jessica, who nodded grimly. Together, they activated the chemical mixture, watching as the fumes began to fill the room. Tracy and Ryan coughed and choked, their eyes streaming tears as they realized what was happening. They tried to scream, to beg for mercy, but the soundproofing ensured that their pleas went unheard. Cole and Jessica stood outside the room, watching through a small window as the chemicals took effect. They saw Tracy and Ryan's struggles grow weaker, their movements more desperate, until finally they fell still. their bodies limp and lifeless. It was over. The monsters were dead, and the hunters stood victorious. But as Cole and Jessica turned away from the room, they knew that the true cost of their vengeance would be paid in the years to come. They had crossed a line, and there was no going back. They had become the very thing they'd sought to destroy, and the world would never be the same. Cole's expression didn't change. "Love isn't enough, Tracy. Not after what you did. Not after what you planned to do." He flipped the switch, and the chemical mixture began to flow into the room. Tracy and Ryan screamed as the fumes hit them, their pleas for mercy turning to choking gasps. Cole and Jessica watched, their faces impassive, as the chemicals took effect. The room filled with the sound of their struggles, the desperate thumping of fists against the plastic sheeting, the muffled cries for help. But there was no help coming. No one to hear their screams, no one to save them from the consequences of their actions. Cole felt a strange detachment, as if he were watching a movie rather than participating in a real-life nightmare. This was what they'd planned for him, after all. This was the fate they'd intended to inflict on him, the terror they'd wanted him to experience. Now, it was their turn. Jessica's hand found his, her fingers squeezing tightly. He looked at her, seeing his own resolve reflected in her eyes. They were in this together, bound by the shared knowledge of what had been done to them, and the unyielding determination to see it righted. As the minutes ticked by, the sounds from the room grew weaker, the struggles less frantic. Finally, there was only silence, the heavy, oppressive silence of a job well done. Cole turned to Jessica, his voice steady. "It's over." She nodded, her expression grim. "It's over." Together, they left the warehouse, leaving behind the bodies of the people who'd tried to destroy them. As they walked away into the night, they knew that they'd crossed a line, that they'd become something different, something darker. But they also knew that they'd done what needed to be done, that they'd ensured justice where the system had failed. And in the end, wasn't that what mattered most? The walls were bare, the rooms echoing with a silence that matched the emptiness inside him. He'd sold his investigation business, donating the proceeds to various charities and victims' funds. He no longer had a purpose, no driving force to fill his days. He was just a man haunted by the ghosts of his past, trapped in a present that offered no redemption. The phone rang, shattering the quiet. He hesitated before answering, recognizing the number as the private line for District Attorney Patricia Williams. "Mr. Mitchell, we need to talk. Can you come into the office tomorrow?" Cole's grip tightened on the receiver. "What's this about, Patricia?" There was a pause before she responded. "It's about Jessica Hoffman. She's been arrested for the murder of her father and his accomplice. We have evidence that places her at the scene of the crime, and we believe she acted alone. But we need your help to build a case against her." Cole's heart pounded in his chest as he absorbed the news. Jessica, arrested, for the murders he'd committed. "I can't help you," he said, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside him. "I have nothing to say about that night." Patricia's voice was firm. "Cole, we know you were involved. We have witnesses who saw you together that night. We have evidence that links you to the crime scene. You can either help us build a case against Jessica, or you can face charges yourself. The choice is yours." The line went dead, leaving Cole staring at the phone, his mind racing. Jessica, arrested, for his crimes. He could turn her in, save himself, or he could stand by her, accept the consequences of their shared actions. But as he sat there, the weight of his choices pressing down on him, Cole realized that there was no right answer, no path that led to redemption. He had become a monster, and now he would face the consequences of his actions. The next day, Cole walked into the district attorney's office, his steps heavy with the knowledge of what he was about to do. He would tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And in doing so, he would finally face the justice he'd sought to avoid for so long. He could refuse, walk away, let the past stay buried, but the look in Amanda's eyes, the desperation and the hope, reminded him of a time when he'd believed in justice, in the power of truth to set things right. "I can't promise anything," he said finally, "but I'll look into it. Give me what you have and I'll see what I can find." Amanda nodded, pulling a thick envelope from her bag. "Everything I have is in there. Photos, messages, anything that might help." Cole took the envelope, feeling its weight in his hands. It was a tangible connection to a world he'd tried to leave behind, a world of shadows and secrets and the unending quest for vengeance. "I'll be in touch," he said, standing up. "But don't expect miracles. Sometimes the truth is harder to find than you think." As Amanda left, Cole sat down at his desk, opening the envelope and spreading its contents out before him. Photos of a young woman with bruises on her arms, text messages filled with fear and desperation, medical records documenting injuries that had been explained away as accidents. It was a familiar story, one he'd heard too many times before. He picked up his phone, dialing a number he hadn't used in years. The voice on the other end was gruff, cautious. "Yeah? Frank, it's Cole. I need a favor." There was a pause, then a sigh. "What do you need?" "I need you to run a background check on someone for me. Derek Walsh, lawyer, lives in the city. I need everything you can find on him." Frank's voice was wary. "Cole, you know I can't just—" "I know, Frank, but I need this. It's important." Another pause, then a reluctant agreement. "All right, Cole, I'll see what I can do. But if this gets me in trouble—" "It won't," Cole assured him. "I promise." As he hung up, Cole felt a sense of purpose he hadn't experienced in years. He was stepping back into the shadows, back into the world of secrets and lies and the unending quest for justice. But this time, he knew the cost. This time, he knew the price he would pay, and he was willing to pay it for Amanda, for her sister, for every victim who'd ever been failed by the system, for every ghost that haunted his past. He would find the truth no matter where it led him. He would bring justice no matter what it cost, and he would do it all in the name of a love that had been betrayed, a trust that had been broken, and a faith in the power of redemption that burned like a flame in the darkness. The phone rang, and Cole answered it, his voice steady and professional. "Mitchell Investigations. How can I help you?" The voice on the other end was hesitant, filled with a mix of fear and desperation. "Mr. Mitchell, my name is Lisa. I need your help. My husband has been acting strangely, and I think he might be involved in something dangerous. I found some documents in his office, and they mention names and dates that I don't understand. I'm scared for my life and my children's lives." Cole's grip tightened on the receiver. He recognized the signs: official indifference, a powerful man, a woman in danger. It was the kind of case that had once driven him to seek justice through legal means. Now, it represented something else entirely. "What makes you think he's involved in something dangerous?" Cole asked, his voice calm and reassuring. Lisa took a deep breath. "I found a list of names and dates in his office. Some of the names are people who have gone missing or been found dead. There are also notes about meetings and payments. I think he's involved in something illegal, and I'm afraid he might hurt us if he finds out I know." Cole felt a familiar stirring of interest. A powerful man, a missing woman, official indifference. It was the kind of case that had once driven him to seek justice through legal means. Now, it represented something else entirely. "What do you want from me, Lisa?" Cole asked, his voice steady and controlled. "I want you to find out the truth," Lisa said, her voice breaking. "I want to know if my husband is involved in something dangerous, and I want to make sure my children and I are safe. I'm willing to pay whatever it takes." Cole leaned back in his chair, weighing his options. He could refuse, walk away, let the past stay buried. But the look in Lisa's eyes, the desperation and the hope, reminded him of a time when he'd believed in justice, in the power of truth to set things right. "I can't promise anything," he said finally, "but I'll look into it. Give me what you have and I'll see what I can find." Lisa nodded, pulling a thick envelope from her bag. "Everything I have is in there, photos, messages, anything that might help." Cole took the envelope, feeling its weight in his hands. It was a tangible connection to a world he'd tried to leave behind, a world of shadows and secrets, and the unending quest for vengeance. "I'll be in touch," he said, standing up. "But don't expect miracles. Sometimes the truth is harder to find than you think." As Lisa left, Cole sat down at his desk, opening the envelope and spreading its contents out before him. Photos of a young woman with bruises on her arms, text messages filled with fear and desperation, medical records documenting injuries that had been explained away as accidents. It was a familiar story, one he'd heard too many times before. He picked up his phone, dialing a number he hadn't used in years. The voice on the other end was gruff, cautious. "Yeah?" "Frank, it's Cole. I need a favor." There was a pause, then a sigh. "What do you need?" "I need you to run a background check on someone for me. Derek Walsh, lawyer, lives in the city. I need everything you can find on him." Frank's voice was wary. "Cole, you know I can't just—" "I know, Frank, but I need this. It's important." Another pause, then a reluctant agreement. "All right, Cole, I'll see what I can do. But if this gets me in trouble—" "It won't," Cole assured him. "I promise." As he hung up, Cole felt a sense of purpose he hadn't experienced in years. He was stepping back into the shadows, back into the world of secrets and lies, and the unending quest for justice. But this time, he knew the cost. This time, he knew the price he would pay. And he was willing to pay it, for Lisa, for her husband, for every victim who'd ever been failed by the system, for every ghost that haunted his past. He would find the truth no matter where it led him. He would bring justice no matter what it cost. And he would do it all in the name of a love that had been betrayed, a trust that had been broken, and a faith in the power of redemption that burned like a flame in the darkness. "I'm sorry, but I can't do that,"